Great, awesome. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Dev DeVret. I use he, him pronouns. I am a senior assistant dean of admissions at Reed College in Portland. And this event is called What is the Waitlist? Excuse me. So you are here to get some information about what the wait list, what it is, how do we use it here at Reed College, what does it mean for you as a waitlisted student. So I appreciate you all taking the time and those of you who are interested in learning a little bit more about it. Just some housekeeping stuff. So the chat is disabled. At the end, I will open it up for questions. So save your questions until the end, and once we open the Q&A option, you'll be able to submit your questions in there. I am joined by my director, Lindsay Hoyt, on this call, who will be helping us answer questions in the Q&A part and sort of helping us moderate that piece. So if you see somebody responding to the questions, that's who it is. So a big shout out and thank you to her. We're going to go over a lot of information, and I know this information is something that you're all looking for. You know, how do you get the answers to some of these questions that you're dying to find out? And so I am going to ask you all to really pay some close attention to the information that we're going to give here, because this presentation will answer a lot of the questions that you all probably have today, but I know it addresses a lot of the questions you all have been emailing us and asking, you have been calling us and asking. So really focus on some of the questions that we're asking. If we start to see some repeat questions in the Q&A, I might start to skip over them if I've already answered them in the presentation. So just something to consider there. I'm also going to preface that a lot of this information that I'm providing is very broad information, right? I'm going to challenge you all to really think about this information and think about how does it apply to your unique situation, right? Because you all have very unique applications, you have all really unique situations, and while I can't necessarily, it obviously just wouldn't be feasible for me to address every situation. I really want you to take the information and think about how does it apply to your specific situation, your scenario, right? If the question, that being said, we're probably not going to address questions in the Q&A that are about your specific situation. My advice to you, if you've got a question that's like very specific, is to again really take this information and see how does it apply to you. And if you're still struggling, then that's a great time to reach out to your admissions counselor. And hopefully by now you know who that person is. If you're an international student, I will be your admissions counselor. If you're a domestic student, your admissions counselor. Just depends on who, depends on where you live, what part of the country your territory is. So some of it's broken up by city, some of it's broken up by state. If you're not sure who your admissions counselor is, if you just visit the admissions page on the Reed website and check the contact us underneath the admissions section, it's a breakdown of who your admissions counselor is right there. But that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So excited to meet with you all and get your questions answered. I know this is a session that I was really excited to put together because the waitlist, especially if you're like me, a first-gen student, the waitlist can be a really confusing thing, and we're trying to debunk some of those questions and concerns that you might have. Okay, so here's kind of the agenda. We're going to go over what the possible decisions are, and then we'll go into the nitty-gritty of what is a waitlist actually. We'll talk about strengthening your application. During that portion, we're going to go over some FAQs, and then at the end is when I'll open the Q&A section to allow for questions. So possible decisions, right? An admit, pretty straightforward. This is if you are admitted to Reed. This could be admitted directly or admitted from the waitlist, right? That means we are awarding you admission, and from there, you get to decide if you'd like to accept that admission. Also, deny on the opposite end, right? That means that, and that could again happen right out. Or for many of you or not many of you, but many of you on the wait list, but the decision can come um, uh, later on down the road from the wait list, and that's where we're not able to award you admission. And I bring this up because regardless of what decision you get from any college or let alone Reed, whatever that decision might be, colleges do have to make some tough choices. We've gotten thousands of phenomenal applications from so many phenomenal students, just like all of you. And we have a certain number of seats, right? Colleges have a certain number of seats to fill. Not getting an admission to a college is not a reflection on you. That is not a reflection on your worthiness of an education. That is not a reflection on your character or who you are as an individual. So I want you to, if you take nothing else away from this presentation, please at least take that away. And knowing that sometimes we do just have to make some tough decisions on some really great students. That's my least favorite part of my job. And again, it is not a reflection on you or your character or your worthiness, right? And then waitlist, right? That's the third possible decision, and that's why you are all here. So what is the waitlist? The waitlist is not an acceptance, an outright acceptance into the college. It's also not a denial. This is where we would like to hold on to you a little bit longer as we sort of shape and sort of see how our incoming class comes in. This list is not a ranked list from like strongest to weakest. It is not a ranking of like who submits this the statement of intent first or fills out our form. There is no ranking to this list. I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions of the wait list is that this is a ranked list. The wait list is used differently every year, and that statement you're going to hear me use quite a bit because it is so true. The wait list is used very differently every year. There's not a set number of students that we take off the wait list. There are some years where we'll take just a few students off the wait list, and other years where we take several students off the wait list, right? I say this because one of the questions I often get is, what are my chances of getting off the wait list, right? Or how likely am I to get off the wait list? And that's a hard question to answer because we don't know yet. It's really going to depend on sort of how our admitted class starts to shape out. And so that could differ from year to year. Waitlist decisions can be made anytime between now and August, usually August 1st, I believe is what we tell you in the email. In the FAQ document. So you may hear from us in May. You may hear from us later down the road. You may hear from us, in June or July. Or all the way up again until that August 1st date. If you don't hear from us, in May, please don't think that we've forgotten you. I promise you we have not forgotten you. It is just that we have not made any decisions yet. Everybody will get a final decision. So you will eventually get a notice from us on what decision we're making from the wait list. So every single waitlist student will hear from us eventually. What can I submit to strengthen my application? Great question. Glad you asked. First and foremost, you'll need to complete the interest form that is in the email that we sent you in the waitlist when we gave you your waitlist decision. So you do need to fill out that form in order to accept your waitlist option, your waitlist seat. So you do have to accept the seat just because we waitlist you. You can choose to decline the waitlist option and withdraw your application, and that's fine too. But we need to know that you are interested in accepting your waitlist spot. In that form, you'll also submit your statement of intent. And we get the question, and I think I might have it here on this slide. I do, so I will get to that in a second. So your statement of intent, it's a maximum of 200 words. Don't overthink this statement. This is just, up to 200 words telling us that you would like to remain on the wait list and why. It doesn't have to be this complex analytical essay. Again, just short, simple, and to the point is fine. And just letting us know your plans. Additional optional materials that you can potentially submit to strengthen your application. So take a look at your application portal and see, was I missing any documents in my original application, right? Did I submit my supplementary essay? Did I submit my financial aid documents? Did I submit all of the teacher and council recommendations? So make sure you go back and look at your portal to see if you've submitted all the original documents that we requested. If you're not sure, you can look at, like I said, look at your portal. You can look at your email inbox and see, have we ever emailed you asking you to submit any additional documents? Usually the email is titled complete your application. So that's how you'll know if we're missing anything. Or just reach out to your admissions counselor and they can let you know if we were ever missing anything from your initial application. Any recent grades? So depending on when you applied, you might have applied without having spring grades yet. So sometimes schools will release grades like at the midterm point or mid-year point, depending on what your school calls it. So if you've got those kinds of grades available, have your school send in those transcripts and updated grades. You can submit an additional essay that highlights your fit and interest to read. Now, this is different from your statement of intent. Your statement of intent, this is a question I get a lot. So what is the difference between the two? The statement of intent is just in your statement of, yes, I'd like to stay on the wait list, here's why. This additional essay that we're talking about highlights your answering the question essentially of why read, right? Why are you interested in read? What does read have to offer you, and vice versa? What do you have to offer read? So it's a two-way street. So that essay is really just sort of unpacking your decision for why read, and it allows us to kind of see you connecting the dots for us on why read, right? Have you received any awards or distinctions since submitting your original application? So if you've received any kind of awards from your school, if you've received awards for community work that you've done, if you've received awards from a specific program that you might have completed, excuse me, those are great to submit to help strengthen your application. Maybe some additional recommendation letters. So maybe if there's another teacher, maybe there is another person who can really speak to your growth and development, maybe like a supervisor or a mentor or somebody, a coach. Here's what I want to say about the teacher recommendations. Really think about what is this recommendation going to contribute to your application, right? And what I mean by that is if it's another standard recommendation letter that mimics some of what we've already heard about you potentially from your previous recommendation letters, then is it really adding value and are we learning anything new about you, right? So when you do go and ask a person to submit an additional recommendation letter, make sure you have that conversation with them and say, hey, I need this recommendation letter to be one of the best recommendation letters that you have applied for or have submitted. If that's not something you can do, that is okay. They're actually doing you a service there, and that gives you the ability to go ask somebody else who maybe has the bandwidth to write you a really, really strong recommendation letter, right? One of the questions that I often get with this is, can I have a peer send a recommendation letter or a friend? Can I have a parent send a recommendation letter? And the answer to, at the end of the day, you can submit whatever you think is going to strengthen your application. I would advise against those peer and parental recommendation letters because they don't necessarily speak to your growth in an academic setting in a way that maybe a teacher or a mentor can. Essentially, those people in your life, those roles, are also more biased than maybe what a teacher might be, and so that also is something that we think about in the process. So that's why we say avoid those peer-to-peer recommendation letters or parent recommendation letters, and really try to focus on someone who has been in a space with you that can really assess your growth academically, as well as maybe in another space that they have seen you grow in. You could think about sending an analytical essay that highlights your academic writing skills. This can be an assignment that you've done in a class. This can be something that you create new from a new topic. There's no specific topic we're looking for, so I would highly recommend, so you can write about whatever, but just something else that we can assess your writing capabilities in. Writing is a big piece of the liberal arts educational model, and so getting to sort of assess some of those writing skills allows us to really get to determine your readiness for college. Something else that I realize is not on this list that I also want to add. I know we have quite a few international students that are in this session as well. So the only additional thing that I think would is maybe missing from this list is going back to missing items from the original application, and that would be English proficiency scores. I know a lot of you took English proficiency tests maybe in January or February, but then never got a chance to submit that in your application. That's an additional testing that you can submit if you'd like, is your English proficiency exams. That also helps us understand what your level of proficiency is. We are test blind, so I know someone in here is thinking, can I submit the SAT or ACT? Read is test blind, so we don't look at test scores when evaluating your application. That's something that we're doing in an effort to be as equitable as possible when reviewing applications. We will look at SAT and ACT scores to establish English proficiency if you have not taken the TOEFL, the Duolingo, or the IELTS exam or tests to assess your proficiency. We can sometimes supplement the SAT or the ACT for that, but that would be the only time where we would use your SAT or ACT score. It would not be used to assess your academic skills. Okay. Some commonly asked questions that we get. What if I get admitted to another college? Totally great question. We want you to proceed as if you have not been admitted to Reed. We cannot guarantee you a place on the incoming class, so it is your job to make sure that you are moving forward with alternate plans, because our highest priority is that you find a college to go to in the fall. And so if you are on the wait list, I say it's safe to assume, just to make sure that you have a place to land, it is safe to assume that you did not get admitted to Reed. Because we won't be able to take every single student off the wait list. So move forward with the thought that you didn't get accepted, and start making plans to go to a school that you were admitted from. And if later down the road we are able to admit you to Reed, then you've got a decision to make, right? Which I think kind of is a unique position for you to be in, because this gives you the opportunity to decide, okay, I've already started committing to this other school, and Reed has just taken me off the wait list. Do I want to move forward with this school that I've been working with, or do I want to switch over and attend Reed? That decision is completely up to you to make. I cannot make that decision for you. Once we admit you off the wait list, you will need to tell us, if you'd like to accept that wait list spot, or accept that acceptance, or withdraw your application and decline our offer. So just because you're taken off the wait list doesn't mean you have to come, but that does give you an opportunity to make a decision later down the road. When will I get an admissions decision? So I know I already addressed this, but this is one of the most asked questions we get, so I bring it up again as a whole separate point. So again, you will hear from us anytime between, in the next couple of weeks, all the way to August 1st. I recognize many of you are international students, and you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I've got to get, my I-20 to get my visa. We are keenly aware. I promise you, I am very much aware how what the process is like to get your I-20 and to get your visa. Once we're able to take you off the wait list, if we're able to take you off the wait list, you will get some information really quickly on what we need to get your I-20 process started and the visa process started. And we can work with individual students at that point on individual countries and individual visa scenarios, and we will do our best to get that decision to you as soon as we can. So for those of you who are international students, I hear you. I understand the challenge of the visa process. I guarantee you I am very keenly aware. Our International Student Services Office is also keenly aware, and they're ready to go and help you navigate those details if we're able to take you off the wait list. We tried to get you to admissions decision as soon as possible, and we will, like I said, we will do that as quickly as we can. We will also notify you if we're not able to grant you admission. So eventually you will know one way or the other. Okay. Here's another question that we often get quite a bit. Can I request an interview? At this time, we are not conducting interviews. Just the sheer number of requests that we have and how small our team is, we would be doing interviews 8 to 10 hours a day, every single day for the next several months, and would never have the opportunity to go back and review applications because we would just be doing interviews. So while I respect your desire to do an interview, and I want to respect you and the time that you took to complete your application, it is unfortunately just not feasible for us to do interviews just because of the sheer number of people. This will not impact your application negatively. If you have questions that you'd like to ask or provide any kind of updates, I think you can definitely still provide those or ask those questions via email, and we will do our best to get back to you as quick as we can. So if you've got updates for your application, if you've got questions, or want to know some information, you are always welcome to email us and ask those questions. You can send it directly to your admissions counselor. You can send it to the admissions inbox, and that'll get forwarded to your admissions counselor. But we are just unfortunately not able to do interviews at this time. Another question we often get a lot of is around financial aid. Will my financial aid be impacted from being on the wait list? The answer is no. We meet demonstrated need for every single admitted student. So your financial aid package will be the same if you're admitted directly or if you're admitted off the wait list. So I'm going to repeat that. So I hope we all hear that. Your financial aid will be the same regardless of how you are admitted to read. If you are admitted directly or if you are admitted directly off the wait list, your financial aid will be the same. We meet demonstrated need for every student. That also includes students that we take off the wait list. So being on the wait list will not impact your financial aid. That being said, if you have not submitted your financial aid documents, I highly recommend you do so still, because that is information. We are a need-aware school in the application process. We do look at your financial aid information. It is not the primary determining factor. We do holistic review of applications, and we look at all parts of the application. If you've been in any virtual session with me ever since 2019, I have made the same analogy, and that is holistic review colleges review your application like a puzzle. We recognize that all of these components of your application are like puzzle pieces. Your grades are just one puzzle piece. Your recommendation letters are just one puzzle piece. Your financial aid information is just one puzzle piece. Your job as a student is to give your admissions counselor all of these puzzle pieces that we request from you. My job as your admissions counselor is to put the puzzle piece together and see what is the full picture in front of me. So if we're missing puzzle pieces, if we're missing your grades, if we're missing a recommendation letter, if we're missing your financial aid information, that is just one puzzle piece of the greater picture that we're missing. So that being said, your financial aid is just one puzzle piece of the whole picture. Um, so you will get financial aid the same if you qualify. Again, we meet it by demonstrated need. So if you qualify for aid and you're taken off the wait list, you will get aid. I think I already addressed this as well, but what are my chances of getting off the wait list? Again, we utilize the wait list differently from year to year, and the list is not ranked in any way. Some years we take a few students off the wait list. In other years, we take many students off the wait list. It just, again, is going to depend on year to year. So I can't quite answer this question with an answer I think you're hoping for. But please rest assured that we are going to make those decisions as quick as we can. And I want to emphasize to not rely on the waitlist decision for your final college plans. That is all I have to present to you, and we're going to open up to the Q&A part. So if I did not address something in the presentation, you've got a question, feel free to pop those into the Q&A portion now, and I'm happy to answer those questions. Again, keep those questions. Maybe a little bit more broad if you can. I'm not able to necessarily address those specific situations right now in this presentation. If you do think of questions after the session is over, you're getting ready for school or driving home or whatever, and you think, oh, I wish I would have asked this. There's our contact information. So it's admission@reed.edu. Feel free to shoot your questions that way. Shoot your questions directly to your admissions counselor, and they'd be happy to address those questions for you if we are not able to get those today. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'll keep that up for maybe another minute here. Okay, let's see here. Some questions that we are getting here. I'm currently working on getting an extra letter of recommendation from one of my teachers. What is the best way for him to submit it confidentially? Yeah, that's a great question. For the recommendation letters, you can ask them to send in those recommendation letters either directly to the admissions account, so this admissions at reed.edu. They can just include your information and we'll get that attached to your application. Or if you're able to send them the Common App link, if you apply through the Common App or the Coalition app, they both have similar links. You can send them the link and it'll get automatically uploaded to your application. But worst case scenario, just ask them to email it to us and we can get that manually uploaded as well. Um, does contacting the school admissions office increase my chance? Um, the answer to that is kind of twofold. You're always welcome to reach out to your admissions counselor. I would say reaching out to your admissions counselor just for the sake of reaching out doesn't necessarily increase your chances. Um, but if there are updates that you'd like to provide, or if you'd like to reach out to let your admissions counselor know that you've got an update or you've got other additional information to share. I think that's totally acceptable and totally fine. Again, I don't know that reaching out for the sake of just reaching out is going to serve you well, per se. What are examples of a prompt for the analytical essay? Also, is there a word limit to the essays other than the statement of continued interest? So the statement of intent has a 200 word limit. The analytical essay is it's pretty broad, right? We don't give you a prompt. There's no word limit because there's not something specific we're looking for in this, other than to kind of review your writing capabilities. So my recommendation is, feel free to write about and analyze whatever it is that you would like to. Again, if you've done something for a class already, no need to reinvent the wheel. You're welcome to submit something that you've done in a class. There is no word limit. I will say, don't go crazy with that. Like, don't feel you need to write an entire dissertation or thesis in order to get admission. Keep in mind we're getting a lot of information from a lot of students from all over the world, and so we do have a limited ability to review that information. So if you're going to send like 30 pages, I cannot guarantee you I'm going to read it all. I would so just think about that as you're submitting that essay. There is purposely not a word limit, so it kind of gives you some of that flexibility, but don't go crazy with that. Is the waitlist going to be released all at once or in batches? That's a great question. We're releasing them sort of in batches and in a rolling matter, in a rolling form. We might take students off, in end of May, and then we might take another batch again, maybe in mid-June. Those are just examples. That's not the exact timeline per se. But they are going to come out in batches, sort of as our incoming class sort of shapes itself as the summer goes along. So it will kind of come out in batches. Can you re-explain the letter of intent? Yeah, absolutely. So the letter of intent is an opportunity for you in under 200 words to reiterate your interest in remaining on the wait list, accepting the wait list offer, and why. Why do you want to stay on the wait list? What is it that you are is motivating that decision? Is what the statement of intent is. Don't overthink it. It does not have to be this poetically written essay. It is just a statement of intent. Do you know how many people are approximately on the wait list this year? I don't have that information for you off the top of my head. Um, Again, that number changes from year to year. Doesn't the sheer number? I don't know that it impacts anything in this conversation right now. But unfortunately, I don't have that information off the top of my head. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I think I'm going to just start taking some here. So, I'm on a gap year, and I feel like I'm missing some extra materials I could otherwise send to you. Because of that, is there any specific thing that gap year students can send you? Yeah, great question. So, if you're on a gap year, the same information applies, right? If you're on a gap year, I think maybe something additional that you could potentially provide is uh, sort of an update on what you're doing, which I think might actually be a required part of the gap year process, is to provide us with updates as your gap year is. Um, oh, you know what? I'm mixing up some terminologies. If you are on a gap year after already getting admitted to read, um, then you wouldn't be here anyway. So I apologize. It's 6 a.m. here in Portland, and I'm going to restart that question, and I'm going to restart that answer. If you are in a gap year from high school, so you graduated high school already, you're taking a gap and applying after that gap, uh, submitting a information about what you're doing during the gap year can always be helpful. I hope you put that information already in your initial application, and if you did, awesome, then nothing extra that you have to do there. But if you have not done that, submitting a update on what you've done during the gap year um, is totally um, a great idea because that allows us to know what you've sort of been filling your time with. Awesome. Okay. Hi, I got waitlisted since early action and submitted the additional materials. Um, do I get do I get to update additional materials or all I need to do is wait? So if you were an early action student, that's a great question. Actually, I'm glad you asked that because I think a lot of the students on this call are regular decisions. So if you were an early action or early decision student who got waitlisted and you've already submitted your additional materials, great, you've done what you needed to do, and there's nothing additional that you need to do other than wait, which I know is maybe the hardest part of this whole process. Um, so uh, I totally sympathize and recognize with that. If you've already submitted stuff, all you need to do is wait. If you have not submitted stuff, I would say go ahead and submit some stuff if you'd like to. Otherwise, it's just going to be a waiting game at this point. Um, I was wondering when it comes to the supplemental material, is more better? That's a great question. It is not necessarily better. Just by submitting more does not mean it's going to be a stronger application. It's all about quality over quantity is what we're looking for. So think about what you're submitting and ask yourself, is what I'm submitting adding value to my application? Is what I am submitting um, providing different information than what the application readers might have gotten in my initial application? Is what I'm submitting um, providing strengthening my application in any way, or am I just repeating information that has already been said? So it is more is not necessarily better. It really is about the quality of what you're sending over the quantity of what you're sending. So great question. Um, Great. Okay. Can you? Okay, sure. I'll explain this one more time. So, can you explain the difference between the statement of intent and the additional essay that highlights fit and interest in read again? Totally. So, statement of intent is literally just that. It is your statement of you responding to our wait list and saying, yes, I would like to stay on the wait list because X, Y, and Z. I would like to stay on the wait list because Reed is a place that I can definitely see myself in, and I would like to continue being on the wait list, for example. The additional essay is, you can think of it as the sibling to the statement of intent, where it looks kind of similar, but it is not the same thing. And if any of you in here are a sibling, you will know exactly what I mean. I have a younger sister, and she looks a lot like me as well. Even though we're 4 years apart, people think we're twins all the time. But the additional essay is um, telling us more about connecting you to Reed and Reed to you. So keep in mind that this is a two-way street, right? You are assessing applications, or excuse me, you are assessing the college to help make a decision just as much as we're assessing you to invite you into our community. And so this essay is really establishing that connection for the admissions counselor. Reed has this program and has these opportunities, and I would love to pursue, and I think would really benefit my life in this way because this is my end goal, right? That's kind of where that additional essay might come into play. Okay. Does Reed offer admission in a later class, like offering admission in the spring session or next fall? That is a phenomenal question. For my first year students, whether you're international or domestic, we have one start, and that is in the fall. If you are not admitted for the fall, you will have to submit a new application for the next year. So we do not defer that. Oh, let me be careful with my words. Um, we will not reach out to you if you've been waitlisted to say we're not going to admit you right now, but we'll admit you for next year. That will not occur. We will eventually either admit you or not accept you off the wait list at some point. Um, you will have to reapply for future years. Um, awesome. Okay. Okay, here we go. As an international student, I seek need-based financial aid, and I have submitted my ISFA. In my country, we don't do tax returns, so I don't want to submit the bank. Oh, so I do want to submit the bank statement and statement of employment income of my parents. Where can I submit those? Thank you. Awesome, great question. If you are wanting to submit any additional financial aid documents, you'll want to reach out to the finance. So if you have not completed a CSS profile, you're definitely welcome to still complete that. Same with the FAFSA. If you are an international student and you're not able to complete the CSS profile, we do have this ISFA application that you're welcome to complete, which is just a different financial aid application that has no charge. If you've got documents to submit, please reach out to financial aid, and they will send you, you can either, if you're okay, let me think about how to say this. There should be a portal for you to upload that sensitive information, and it's on the financial aid website, which you can get to from the admissions page, or you can reach out to financial aid directly and they can send you the link to that portal. That way you can upload those sensitive documents to a secure portal, and that can then get added to your application. Can you submit an art supplement? Yeah, great question. I'm not going to gatekeep what you will submit and what you don't submit. Again, I just want you to think about answering the question, is this adding value to my application? I think art is definitely something that can add value, and if you'd like to, you're welcome to do so. You submit whatever it is that you think will add value and strengthen your application. So to answer that question, yes. If you think that's going to add value and really strengthen your application, please go ahead and do so. I think I've addressed this question. Can Reed College transfer some of the waitlisted students to the next year class of 2024? The answer is no. You will have to reapply next year. Is there a deadline for submitting additional materials? That's a great question. I believe in your waitlist email, we ask you to submit stuff within 3 weeks. I would go back and just verify that in that email because I could be wrong about that timeline, but I believe it's 3 weeks to submit your documents. And so yes, please submit that quickly, and we have that sort of set in place because we could be reviewing your application at any point. It could we could start we could have already started reviewing your waitlist application, or we could review it at any time over the summer. And so we want to make sure you get those documents as soon as you can, any of those materials, to strengthen your application as soon as we can. I also want to reiterate or emphasize the only thing that's required to do is submit your statement of intent and that waitlist form. You're not required to submit all this extra stuff like an analytical essay, a recommendation letter, any kind of supplemental material. That is not a requirement. Those are optional things to do. The only thing that we require for you to accept your place on the waitlist is the waitlist form and the statement of intent. So do not feel like you have to submit all these extra documents. This is just an opportunity that we're giving you if you have additional information to share. Okay, so let's see here. May we take an out-of-the-box approach for the additional essay, or does it specifically have to be a YS format essay? Great question. Again, as long as you think it adds value. The Why Us essay was just sort of our recommendation. If you'd like to send something else, that's why we have that analytical essay as an option. If you want to take an out-of-the-box approach, that you're welcome to do that as well. That decision is up to you on what you want to submit to strengthen your application. Is there any particular supplement to the application that you value more than others? Is demonstrated interest a factor? Great question. There's not any particular supplemental item that we would say adds more value over something else. It's really sort of up to each individual student to really determine what makes sense for their personal scenario, their personal situation. Is demonstrated interest a factor? Yeah, sure. I mean, we do look at, we do look to see, how you've interacted with us. Whether, have you attended an event, right? Like attending an event like this. Have you visited the campus? Have you attended other virtual sessions? Things like that. I mean, it's always good for us to know. Again, it's one puzzle piece of the greater picture. And I say this because I don't ever think doing something just for the sake of doing it always makes sense, right? Like just going, registering to attend a virtual session just for the sake of saying you went to something, if it's not going to be something that you actually want to be at, does that make sense? I think that's something that you need to decide. But we also recognize that sometimes going to the college campus is not feasible, especially if you live halfway across the world, right? It's one thing if you're in California or Washington, it's a whole other thing if you're in like, you know, Korea or India. So in that case, you've got other you look for other ways to be connected to the college. Um, as an international student, submitting my TOEFL score will increase my chances. Um, okay, so submitting your TOEFL score, submitting any kind of like English proficiency scores doesn't necessarily increase chances of admission. It just provides us with additional information that helps us make a final decision, right? So um, I want to be careful about this thought of, oh, if I submit this, this will increase my chance, right? Um, I use that word increase loosely in that like yes it strengthens your application and allows us to get another piece of information about you, but I hesitate on telling you what strengthens your application over something else, right? Because again, we look at every student individually, and what one student might submit may not make sense for another student to submit. So all this information is broadly given to you to sort of apply it to your unique situation. Will housing still be available? The answer is yes. Even if you're taken off the wait list, housing will still be available. First and second year students are actually required to live on campus, and so housing priority tends to go to those first and second year students when it comes to that decision. So you will still go through all of the first year um, steps, the things that any student taken off or any student directly admitted would have, right? You'll still be part of orientation week. You'll still be part of summer advising. You'll still qualify for housing and a meal plan. None of that is, sorry, none of that is going away. It is just the timeline is shifted is all. Um, I think I addressed this question here too. Um, how does the orientation process work for students who are accepted off the wait list? Yep, so we get those final decisions out and we'll work with you on orientation still comes after that August 1st date. So I think classes at Reed start at the end of August or maybe early September. So orientation doesn't happen until after these decisions go out. So you'll still qualify for all of those things that I mentioned. Um, Should I submit IB exam results after receiving them? Oh, sorry, the questions like move around sometimes. I don't know where the question went, but the question was about IB scores. Um, and yes, you're welcome to send IB scores if those are um, ready and you took IB exams. You're welcome to submit that as well. I think that is totally acceptable to submit with, just like additional grades would be. Um, If you reapply to Reed, do you stand an equal chance with the rest of the applicants? That's a great question. If you've applied to Reed in the past, or if you reapply to Reed again in the future after getting waitlisted or not admitted, we sort of picture it as a clean slate. And so when you resubmit your application the next cycle, we look at it with a fresh pair of eyes and we go and reassess your application. We do look to see whether you have reapplied or not, and we do note that in your application. But it doesn't necessarily mean just because you didn't get in this year that you're going to be guaranteed admission in a future year. We reevaluate. Don't know why that was a tongue twister for me. We reevaluate applications from year to year against the new class, and so um, we'll reevaluate your application the next year. So that gives you the opportunity to provide any more information about what you've been doing in that year since. Can I get a recording after the call? Yes, absolutely. Just reach out to us and we'll send you the recording, and happy to do that for you as well. Um, can I submit a research abstract or research paper in place of the academic essay? Absolutely. If you think that's going to demonstrate some of those writing skills, you're welcome to do that as well. Would it be beneficial to address a situation that might have affected our grades in the additional essay? Yes, that's totally great for you to do. Um, if you didn't already do that in your application initially, then that's fine. You can do that in your, the Why Us essay. You can send that as a separate email. Communicate that however you'd like to communicate that. You can type it up as a document and upload it to through your portal directly. That might actually be the easiest way for everybody for you to do that. But yes, you can address those holes in your application. So if it's a dip in grades, if it's hey, I didn't do as many activities, and here's why. Well, for whatever reason, if there's anything that you would like to address in your application that you haven't already done, you're welcome to do so at this point. As a first-gen student, does the waitlist imply that our puzzle is not complete, hence the importance of supplementary materials, or is it more to do with available seats at Reed? That's a great question. I was a first-gen student too, and I recognize that this admissions process can be kind of overwhelming to sort of navigate. It truly kind of has to do more with seats available, right? We get just to kind of give you paint you a picture, we get thousands of applications for an incoming class of somewhere between like 400 to 500 people, right? I would love to admit all of you wonderful people if I could, because I think you all bring such amazing uniqueness to the conversation. But unfortunately, that is just not feasible, and so we do have to just make some tough decisions somewhere. The wait list allows us to sort of hold on to you a little bit more and say, "Well, we're not able to make that final decision right now. We'd like to hold on to you to see if we can make that decision a little bit later down the road once we sort of see how our incoming class sort of shapes out to be." Does that mean on May 2nd we're going to know exactly how many students we're taking off the wait list and what the wait list is going to look like? Again, the answer is still no. So don't think you have got to reach out and start emailing us on May 2nd to know if what the wait list is going to look like, because that's a rolling process that will change and develop over the summer. I promise you, though, we did not forget about you. You will get a final decision from us. I promise every single one of you about that. We are at the end of our hour, I think I've gotten most questions answered as long as they were broad enough. If you feel like you still have a question that we were not able to answer for you, feel free to reach out to your admissions counselor, and we're happy to have that conversation. There's also a lot of information in the frequently asked questions section of the waitlist email. There's also a lot of information in the initial waitlist email. So, before you reach out to those questions, make sure you're reviewing those to make sure that the question wasn't already, sorry, that's my alarm going off to wake me up. Make sure those questions aren't already addressed in those documents that exist. As long as they don't, and they weren't already addressed in here, you're welcome to reach out to your admissions counselor, and we're happy to continue the conversation with you. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was useful. On behalf of the entire admissions team, we sincerely thank you for submitting your application to Reed. It's been such a joy to read your applications and get to learn a little bit more about all of you. And we've read some phenomenal essays and seen some really amazing work that you've all done. And please know it does not go unnoticed. And that's all I have for you all. Thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.